Our first order of business is to go into executive session pursuant to section 1-206B of the Connecticut General Statutes to discuss strategies and negotiations with respect to pending litigation. NASRA West Hartford LLC versus Town of West Hartford Docket CV-21-6070123. So with that, we'll make a motion. Well, without objection, we will move into executive session and come back to the Finance Committee meeting once we have concluded the business of the executive session. So with that, I will see those who are invited. I believe we have to invite the town manager, both Councilors Fay and Davidoff, and Gina Verano from our legal department. And is there anyone else, Rick?
There is not, Mr. Chairman. So Deputy Corporation Counsel Verano is already in the executive session breakout room, so we'll join her there.
All right, we will, and then you're right. I will just go back to come back in. We will use the link that we have for this meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct. And Councilor Fay, looks like Councilor Fay has a question, sir.
Yep, go ahead, Councilor Fay.
No, I'm good. I'm great. She sent that under separate invite. I found it. Thank you so much.
All right. Excellent. All right, we will see you all in another virtual meeting.
Okay, thanks.
All right. All right, you're right. When Mr. Davidoff and Ms. Fay join us, we can you just let me know if I think we're good.
Deputy Mayor Sweeney, yes, we are. You are all set and ready to proceed whenever you'd like. We're streaming live.
All right. Okay. Okay. Just waiting for Leon. Davidoff should be joining shortly. All right. Mr. Davidoff is here and entering into video. Um, almost here. Excellent. All right. With that, we will bring the Finance and Administration Committee back to order. The committee met with Gina, the Deputy Corporation Counsel, Gina Verano, and Town Manager Matt Hart in executive session to discuss tax appeals. And from that, I'm going to make a motion that we move to settle the tax appeals filed by NASRA West Hartford LLC as follows. The fair market value of the property located at 1061 New Britain Avenue on the 2020 grand list is reduced from 3.714285 million to 2.225300 million. Sorry, I'll be clarified for the record. 3.714 million $285 to $2,225,300. Just want to make sure I'm not saying 200 million. So that is for the property on 1061 New Britain Avenue, and then also the fair making a settlement for the tax appeal on fair market value of for 2021 of the 1061 New Britain Avenue on the 2021 grand list is reduced from 2.22,250,000 to 1,700,000. Attorney Verano, is that correct and on the record for all everything you need there?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
All right. With that, I do have, there is a motion.
Mr.
on
Chair,
the floor.
I would second your motion, but I would just note that Town Manager Rick Ledwith was present, not Town Manager Matt Hart.
Oh, boy.
I didn't even notice.
I'm in the doghouse. Sorry, Rick. I was literally just talking to you before this. Sorry.
No, I didn't
Matt
even
Hart was
notice.
definitely. Yes. So a motion has been made in second, and we will. All those in favor? Aye.
Did you want any commentary?
Sure, if you would like.
Yeah, I would like to comment. So after receiving very prudent counsel from our Deputy Corporation Counsel, Gina Verano, and an explanation as to the particular parcel that we're reducing the fair market value on, which is 1061, which is one of 5 parcels that is owned by NASRA WH LLC. The committee is making the recommendation based upon her testimony, which was supplemented by testimony of conservative appraisal, that the numbers that we're looking at here this evening, Mr. Chairman, are reasonable and prudent and reflect pretty accurately the fair market value of this one building. And it was also shown to the committee that one of the comps was 540 New Park Avenue, and we were able to determine what the price of that was with respect to it being vacant land, and the comps were pretty similar. So they did comp out to that point. So I think that's important to put on the record, and I will, for those reasons, be supporting this motion this evening to settle these tax appeals at these reduced values.
Thank you for that, Mr. Davidoff. Ms. Fay.
No, thank you. Since we're speaking, I think we did our diligence, and Gina provided us with very good information. And we got to ask our questions. And of course, Leon's expertise was very valued, his zoning expertise as well as appraisals. So I think we got to a very good place, and I'm appreciative of the recommendations. Thank you.
All right. Since we have, and so we have all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. The record reflects the unanimous support of this from this committee. Moving on to item number 3 for Mr. Town Manager Rick Ledwith. Would you mind making a summary of the resolution appropriating American Rescue Plan grants?
I will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see everyone. We do have 3 sustainability projects under the Town of West Hartford American Rescue Plan Act program that we are looking for approval this evening to bring to a council meeting tomorrow evening. But just as a reminder to the committee, we have discussed these items in the past and are now ready to move forward with the implementation of the sustainability projects. This resolution has been endorsed by both our Conservation and Environment Committee as well as our Clean Energy Commission Committee. And the resolution would approve the use of $50,000 for an urban tree canopy study. And that study would provide information on tree population, species diversity, species distribution, condition, land cover, pervious and impervious services, possible planting areas, and ecosystem services and structural value. We would also approve a $50,000 rain garden sustainability project. And that would be, rain gardens would be located in each park and would support Department of Public Works Intelligent Stormwater Management Program. Rain garden in each park would substantially mitigate runoff. Park designer would assist in creating a template for gardens to be replicated in other parks. And appropriate signage would educate the community on the garden's important function and how to integrate them in private yards as well. And then we have $40,000 for pollinator gardens. And we would plan to install pollinator gardens in each park. 3 have been installed to date. We have one at Westmore, Spice Bush, and Fern Ridge. And this would support the addition of 5 to 6 more pollinator gardens throughout our parks in town. And educational signage would also be installed for our pollinator gardens as well. So I will pause there and turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, for any questions. And we have our Director of Leisure and Social Services, Helen Rubino-Turco, with us this evening, and who is the author of these 3 sustainability projects, who could answer any questions as well.
I do not need further explanation on this. Do members of the committee? All right. We will move on to item B, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2022-23 community development grant budget to appropriate prior year unexpended grants funds, unallocated public-private partnership funds. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the council knows, every year, unexpected CDBG funds are able to be carried forward into the next fiscal year and to be used in accordance with HUD guidelines and the West Hartford Annual Action Plan. And for fiscal year ending 6/30/2022, we are rolling over $1.7 million into the upcoming fiscal year. Some of which will be used to offset some, and we've been talking, as particularly in this committee, about some of the inflation, supply chain issues that we're seeing in various projects around town. The projects that'll be covered under CDBG were not exempt from some of those rising inflationary increases in particular projects. So $602,000 of that $1.7 million would be used to supply additional funds to our Woolcott Park project, Kennedy Park Bathhouse project, as well as sidewalks that are being redone over the course of a number of streets that are CDBG fund eligible. And then we have our Glover Park Playscape, additional cost to cover that expenditure, as well as a ADA bridge and path at Spice Bush Swamp. And I will, I'll pause there. And again, Helen, our Director of Leisure Services, is available to supplement anything I may have said there incorrectly, Helen, or anything you want to add, but we certainly can turn it back to the committee for questions on this. Somewhat of a routine matter. You know, this is, as I said, something that happens every year, and the council does roll over some portion of the previous year's CDBG fund into the following fiscal year. Pause there. Thank you.
Any questions from members of the committee? All right. Seeing none.
Hold on one
we'll
second.
move on to.
Excuse me. Mr.
Councilor Finney and Councilor Davidoff both have.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. My video is my end a little screwy?
You're
No.
a little, yeah, you're pausing a little here and there. The video, your sound is fine.
I can't see anyone's hands right now. So just Mr. Davidoff and then Ms. Beck.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. I just had one question. What is the $150,000 to Hebrew Life Choice? What was that particular project? That would probably be answered by Ms. Rubino-Turco, Mr. Chairman.
For you, Mr. Chairman, over to Helen Rubino-Turco, or Director of Leisure and Social Services.
Thank you. Hebrew Life Choice made an application through annually. We provide an opportunity for businesses, nonprofits to apply for CDBG funding for an eligible project. And Hebrew Life Choice did apply and was approved to make some improvements at one of their location. And it has to do with window replacements.
Do we know more specifically where?
I can look up the application and get back to you. I
just
don't
wanna be
have it.
certain I'm not conflicted.
I understand.
While Helen's looking it up, Mr. Deva, can we move to Mary's questions, or do you have another one?
What's that?
Mary?
Sure, thank you so much. Mine's just more practical. So if we're gonna roll over funds from this year to the following budget year, which makes sense, it happens a lot. Could we have not just taken ARPA funds or COVID run funds, whatever you want to call them? Excuse me, I'm sorry, keep getting messages across. And just had the net go over. I'm not sure why we took some in and then rolled some over. I don't know how the math works exactly, but just a general procedural question, I suppose.
Agree, Mr. Chairman. Helen Reno Turco, our Director of Leisure and Social Services.
Thank you. That's a great question. So in this case, the CDBG funds came to us in two allocations, the regular CDBG and the CV funds, the COVID funds. And we haven't used them all in the past year, in the past couple of years. So we're rolling them forward and we're allocating them to eligible programs. These are some of the programs were already funded and identified, and we had numbers associated with them, but they're coming back over budget. And so that's why we had to do a little bit of tinkering and reallocating to make sure that we could finish the projects that we have on board before we start new ones. And I do have an answer. I hope I answered your question, Ms. Fay.
I guess I'm even more confused. So we just took it. I didn't write all the numbers down that you were going through, Mr. Ledwith, but we were taking receipt and then we're rolling over. So there's a net number somewhere. We took in X amount. We're rolling forward 600. Why wouldn't we have just kept the 600 and used it for what we needed for overruns, and used the COVID money for next year? There's probably a reason and a procedural thing that why you had to bring money in and then roll money over. It seems like, you see my hands, they're crossing over. So you're bringing from here and then you're putting over again. So the net number, the math just doesn't make sense to me, but procedurally, I'm sure there's an answer. It just seems we could have spent the 600 instead of rolling it over, and then still had COVID funds to bring in for next year. What am I missing? Does that make sense, Leon or Liam?
If I can attempt to answer, Mr. Chairman, if I'm understanding correctly, Councilor Fay. So we're rolling over $1.7 million of unused CDBG funds from last fiscal year to this fiscal year, and we're using $602,399 to supplement the previously approved projects, so that are coming in a little bit higher than we had previously budgeted. So we're using, and appropriately so, using these CDBG funds to, for example, the Woolpit Park project, we are estimating might come in about $50,000 over what we had previously budgeted. So we are using part of those CDBG funds, $50,000, to fund that additional cost for that CDBG approved project.
Yeah, I get that. And I know we're using some for the pool that needs significant work. That was over because of inflation. But maybe I misunderstood, but I thought we were also bringing funds in from COVID on top of using, and then we're still rolling over. So I didn't understand why we would be adding COVID relief funds in if we had a surplus that was going to go next year. Just trying to.
So the COVID funds are part of CDBG. So we have ARPA funds, which are COVID related, that are completely separate of
Mhm.
this bucket of money. So, and this bucket of money is broken out into two allocations. One's COVID or CV, as Helen referred to it, and then your standard CDBG allocation.
All right, that's what I was missing. They're together. I get it now. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I found out the answer. It's Summerwood.
Okay.
Summerwood is the Hebrew Senior Life, so I don't have a conflict. Thank you.
All right. Good to know. Sorry, I had a little technical issue there. I guess we will move to item number 4. Trying to pull that back. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a popular topic for us the last couple of meetings. You'll recall at last month's Finance and Administration meeting, we have been struggling with the replacement of our police cars, an issue that has plagued governmental agencies, not just throughout Connecticut, but across the country. At last month's meeting, we discussed the purchase of 5 new vehicles that we had ordered back in October of 21. And then at that point, they had a 40-week lead time. And then that order, as we discussed last month, was subsequently canceled by Ford 11 months later. So then we changed that order to 2023 models again, 2023 models, but again, are looking at a late spring arrival for those vehicles if we're lucky, and hopeful that we'll be able to maintain that timeline that's been promised by Ford. So, but even with that delay, we're still in a position where we need to replace another 7 vehicles, and our police department has been working very hard, leaving no stone unturned, trying to find another avenue for vehicle purchases. And they have found a qualified vendor listed on the state of Connecticut procurement portal that, luckily for us, had 5 2022 Ford Interceptors and 2 2022 Chevy Tahoes. So this resolution of $351,819 from our budgeted capital non-recurring fund would help put us in a more comfortable position from an operations standpoint. So I don't want to say it's a crisis. That might be a little too strong of a word to use, but it's been a challenge for us. And for agencies, as I said, across the country, trying to find adequate cars to purchase and maintain the public safety here in town. So I'll pause there and turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman, for any questions that the committee had.
No, I just have a question. Does the police department have like do they have a consultant that helps them buy and purchase these vehicles?
So we do not. We've been, we have someone down in John Phillips Operation Department of Public Works manager who assists us with essentially scrounging the marketplace to find police cars. It's never been an issue the way it has been the last, several months. It's really it's gotten worse, obviously, over the last several months, but yeah, so I'm sorry.
I just remember, one of the things that seemed to be helpful, recall from like COVID, where I think you all and the state were hiring, firms to help them search through and purchase things more aggressively, because obviously, this is what they would do. I don't know if that's something to consider, because if the prices are going to be so high, and we're starting to see people, particularly certain firms or consultants that we contract with to do work, are giving us these significantly inflated prices, it might be something to consider to have someone that does do this at a larger volume that could help us with some maybe help bring down the cost on this, as opposed to just keep, banging your heads over and over on this and really putting this in the hands of folks that have a lot of other things that they've got to do as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll take that back to our team over at the police department and down at Public Works as well.
Yeah, just a thought. I think that seemed to work. And the other question I have is, because of the shortages, does this qualify as an emergency situation where you can go off of the non-preferred state vendors?
I'll, through you, Mr. Chairman, turn over to our Director of Financial Services, Peter Privatera.
Thank you, Pete Privatera, Finance Director. We are purchasing these vehicles off of state contracts or public purchasing consortium contracts. So the pricing has been locked in. It's not really a question at this point of the pricing on these vehicles because the state contract amounts are set in place. It's a question of not having Ford Motor Company pulled our last order because my understanding was they didn't have enough chips to put in the vehicles, and they had to pull the ones that were in there off production because they couldn't complete them. So, what we do normally is whenever there's a need for vehicles, I will work with the police department and with the fleet manager because obviously I'm the purchasing agent as well for the town. So we identify public purchasing consortiums like MHQ. We've been buying our police vehicles from MHQ for many years now, and we'll try to work with them to find something. It's been difficult, but I think we were very, very lucky that these 5 vehicles in production right now were offered to us because the last conversation we had, we were told that 22 models are no longer being produced and we had to purchase 23. So we do work closely with both police and Public Works on this. Thank you.
It's not the question I asked. I asked whether or not do you guys feel that where things are for a shortage on supply and demand that would allow you to have some more leniency in who you are able to contract with to go outside of your typical bidding requirements?
Again, Pete Privatera, Finance Director. At this point, if we need a vehicle and we can't find it through a state contract, what I'll do is I'll ask the fleet manager to try to locate one. And if he locates one that is not part of the fleet contract, then we do have some options with respect to a bid waiver for an extraordinary circumstance, or what I would send a memo to the town manager and ask him to allow me to bypass the bid. So, we do have some options here on how to get our hands on vehicles other than these contracts.
Sure. I mean, I'm saying this not just generally to the cars. I think we're starting to see this in other areas where we're having inflation prices come in, and we're having contractors change some numbers on us. And I just didn't know if this allows for us to, if there's been any kind of discussion amongst municipal leaders to have for flexibility on the requirements on bidding because of some of the inflation. And I think some of it is I would say predatory in some of the cases. Some of the contractors and vendors are taking advantage of the moment, and I would like to know all of our abilities at this point to make sure that we are able to be nimble during this time. So maybe it's something we discuss at another point, but I know that this has come up in other conversations as well. So thank you for that. Any questions from the members of the council?
Mr. David Off has one.
Okay. Go ahead, Leon.
Thank you. So on average, these 7 vehicles that will get delivery by the end of the year is about $50,000. per vehicle. That's before we outfit them, I presume, with all the bells and whistles to make them West Hartford police cars. How does that compare to purchases price prior to the pandemic?
Pete Privatera, Finance Director. I would say prior to the pandemic, we're paying about 10% less than we're paying now. I recall the last time we purchased interceptors, we were paying in the $40,000 to $45,000 range. So they are a little more expensive than they were the last time we purchased them.
And then I have one further question, Mr. Chairman, to the manager. So with the addition of these 7 vehicles, will that put us at the appropriate level of replacement vehicles for the police department in this current fiscal year?
Yes, it will.
Thank you for your answer.
You're welcome.
All right. No further questions. I don't see any hands. I don't see Mary on here. Okay. With that, sorry, I'm going through multiple screens here to get this stuff up. Moving on to item D, a resolution authorizing expensive tax owed in the 2018 grand list for motor vehicle and personal property. Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Every year, the tax collector identifies motor vehicle taxes, supplemental motor vehicle taxes, and personal property taxes that are 3 years delinquent. And upon council approval, we move these taxes to the suspense tax book. And this year we have $311,765 from the 2018 grand list that will be moved to suspense. We have $164,000 for motor vehicle taxes, $44,800 for supplemental motor vehicle taxes, and then $102,151 for personal property taxes that would be moved over to the suspense account. Doesn't necessarily mean that we won't collect taxes in the future from these delinquent taxpayers, but it's the state statute that we're moving them at this point over to our suspense account. This is, again, it's similar to the CDBG. It's something that we do every single year. This happens to be for the 2018 grand list. I'll pause there and turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. I do not. No questions. And feel free to just jump in at this point because I'm just scrolling through my phone right now to see if people are here because my computer.
Everyone looks good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. With that, we will move over to the approval of the minutes from the August 15th in 2022 and September 12th. I have a motion for approval.
So moved.
All right. All those in favor? All right. Okay. Moving on to staff reports. I don't think we have any communications, Mr. Ledwith. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So moving on to staff reports and the financial services update. I assume that's Mr. Privatera.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pete Privatera, Finance Director. What you have is our first report on our projections for general fund operations for the current fiscal year. At the end of September, we're projecting a little over a $300,000 positive variance. Overall, our revenues are up about $1.1 million. I'll just give you a quick overview on the revenues. On the tax collection side, we're collecting, our first collection was pretty much right on line with what we've been collecting the last few years in terms of the percentages. We're doing well. If you recall, when we adopted the budget, we did not know what the state would pass with the uniform mill rate cap. They did pass a mill rate that was less than ours. So what we're projecting in this report is a drop of roughly $5.2 million in tax collection on motor vehicles. However, our intergovernmental revenue is increasing by the same amount. So it's kind of a wash. We did receive a check for $5,186,000.25 from the state of Connecticut because of that state public act that dropped the motor vehicle mill rate. So it's kind of early. We still have our supplemental motor vehicle mailing. We only have the first tax mailing. But we did some analysis before the budget was adopted, and we felt that that 5.2 million was very, very close to what we thought we would collect. So we're going to be looking at this, on a monthly basis moving forward, especially after the second collection and the supplemental motor vehicle collection. Other categories, charges for services, we had some slight increases in related to Cornerstone Pool program registrations, zoning petitions, ordinance violations, to the tune of about $185,000. Miscellaneous revenue, there's one typo there. It says miscellaneous revenue is projected to increase by 1.2 million. It should have said is expected to increase to $1.2 million. The interest rates have been rising significantly. When we adopted the budget, our assumption for interest rate growth on our investments was about 48 basis points, which is less than 0.5%. Now, the state of Connecticut investment fund is at 3.13%. We're projecting a $925,000 increase on our interest income. Actually, I'm working with someone about some alternate investments to purchase 6-month securities from the government that are paying over that, roughly 4.5%. So I think we're going to see more of an increase as we move on through the year and we manage our investments. So all in all, a decent increase on the revenue side. On the expense side, we're projecting an overage of $814,000. I made a comment about the town clerk being over budget because of some hires. However, the town clerk has indicated that she'll be submitting a resolution at the next council meeting after this one with an appropriation request from one of her funds that she receives from the state to offset that. So that's going to be a wash, and we'll report that in the next month's report. The fire department is trending over about $370,000, again, dealing with overtime issues. Police department is trending over by about $432,000. Currently, I believe they have about 7 vacancies. And, again, we try to do our best to manage police and fire overtime throughout the year. Non-departmental is expected to be over by about $168,000. There are 2 components to this. One was 2 nurses being out for a prolonged period of time because of workman comp issues. And another is related to what we transfer to the health department from CDBG. In the past, the health department had been working with us with respect to housing inspections in low and moderate income neighborhoods, and that was an allowable expense by CDBG. Recently, over the last year, due to the pandemic, the health department has been concentrating on health issues rather than housing inspections. I've had a conversation with Helen Rubino Turco regarding the CDBG allocation, and unfortunately, those inspections aren't being done with enough frequency to support that. So we're going to have to cover that with a transfer from the general fund at some point during the fiscal year. We have roughly 7 retirements in the uniform services. We have a few other retirements, but not at the same pace that we had seen in prior years where we had significant cash outs in terms of, when a firefighter or a police officer would retire. We've been able to manage that. So all in all, I think we're in a good position. I think we're going to have some improvements in our revenue estimates. And I think we're going to manage, some of the departments with significant overages, police and fire. So it is early in the fiscal year. This is our first report, but I think we're in a very good position right now fiscally. And I'll answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Private.
Thanks for going out.
Thank you very much. It's a great presentation. There is some good news in there. I appreciate that. I mean, it is great to see that. I have just a general question. How are generally our investment accounts doing right now? Obviously, with the market being what it is, I'd love to know how they are doing. Because I know you are very conservative in the way we discussed earlier today. We appreciate that, and I think it's times like this where we'll really appreciate that risk adverse position you take, and to know if you had an update on that.
Well, certain accounts we manage in different ways. For instance, with our pool cash, every time we were getting set to move it to a marketable CD or some other government security, the stiff rate would go up. And we're weighing, do we want to move it now and take a chance, or do we want to, work with, with what we have? And the stiff rate has been going up every day. It's been going up. However, I did have a conversation with one of our investment advisors related to some of the government securities that are now for 6 months, we get higher than the stiff rate. So we're going to be working towards identifying that cash to make those investments. The plan is to invest now, and we would, those investments would come to maturity prior to the end of the fiscal year when we have significant payments like teachers' balloon payments and such. But on the other hand, for instance, the pension obligation bond reserve fund, that's in a very conservative bond market investment, and I'm glad we put it there, because if we put it in significantly, in 60% equities, 40% fixed income, we could have taken a big hit there. But that's doing well, it's doing pretty good as well. So again, we're trying to, I always say this: I'm conservative and I don't want to take any risks, but I think we're doing good, and I think we're going to do better as the year goes on.
Great, thank you for that. Mr. Dadoff, or do you have any questions? Ms. Fay? All right. Easy crowd here. We'll move from there. Thank you, Tara, for your presentation. We'll move on to item B, update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll turn things over to Kathy Lombardi, our Acting Director of Human Resources, who can quickly summarize her monthly report. Kathy, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Town Manager, and to the committee. Good evening. As you can see by the report, we've been continuously busy recruiting. Even in this market that's very challenging, we have tried using some more social media to advertise, and I think that, we've been very successful. Some positions have been a little bit more challenging to fill, but we've continued to attract excellent candidates to join our team. We have opened back up the police officer recruitment. I think a while ago I had told you we had a full complement with retirements and some people just falling off of not completing the required trainings and stuff. We are back open. We continue to test and interview, and right now we have a large focus on the fire department. We just actually did testing on Saturday and have 18 applicants coming back again for some more testing this weekend. So we continue to move forward with that. Under our trainings, we had offered open to the state a boot camp training that we had over 100 people attend, and we'll be offering another one later November. And we continue to do our supervisor training with the Public Works Department, and that's going very well, utilizing our EAP resources. Risk management is busy. We did our active shooter training. We just did some training for the Board of Education employees starting school, and we'll be doing that with our town hall staff. And we have started to have our townwide safety committee meetings. We began our labor negotiations with the grounds unit last week, and we are scheduled through December for future meetings, and hopefully we'll be able to come to some quick resolution. Our employee recognition committee group is going to be recognizing some staff at our all staff meeting this week, and we're working on our years of service program later this year to offer. The benefits department is busy. We've had 2 pension meetings since we last met, and looking forward to moving to the computerized mark system shortly. And they continue to process retirements, estimates, and refunds. So we've been doing a lot of different things, and I'm available for any questions anybody might have.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you for your report. It's much more complete online with the attachment, so thank you. I did have a question. I noticed that in our engineering department, an offer was made and the candidate rescinded or chose not to take a position with the town. Are you finding that to be the case more often than not, or is that a unique scenario?
Not more often than not. When it has presented itself, we've tried to be persuasive as to why it would be a better offer. That position, their employer countered. So, but I wouldn't say it's a pattern that we're seeing a lot of.
Okay, so is it fair to say that once we do make an offer, most of the candidates who've gone through our interview process accept our offer?
Pretty much, yes, but I find that we are negotiating more and presenting more of what we have to offer, outlining our benefits, outlining the good things that we have that they may. I was working with an applicant today, and you know, when you measure up against the benefit package that we have, I think that gives us some more leverage.
And one last question: do you find the applicants coming back to you saying, well, if the starting salary was X, I'd be more inclined to accept the position? And if that's the case, do we move off our number, or do we stick to it?
We've negotiated off of our number more lately, probably, than I think you've had in the past. And I don't know if Rick can probably speak a little bit more to that. But yes, we're not bringing people in at the entry level anymore.
Yeah, salary, to your point, Kathy, is very much more of a negotiation than it ever has been. So we are in you know, in the case of that civil engineer, they accepted the position, and their current employer, you know, renegotiated with them and offered them a higher salary. So we couldn't compete with that. So we've been, to Kathy's point, we've been doing okay. We had a town managers meeting last Thursday, and it was a topic of discussion. So we are starting to see more challenges around the state. We've been fortunate to not have seen some of those issues, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see more of it as we move forward. Hopefully not. You know, there's been situations around the state, people accepting positions, having a start date, and literally not even showing up and not even calling, just completely ghosting employers. We've been fortunate, haven't had that happen. But yeah, salary is definitely more of a negotiation than it ever has been.
Thank you for your reply. I would say the public sector as well as the private sector are experiencing probably the exact same responses. So,
Yeah.
and it's uncertain as to how long that that continues, but it sort of amazes me how low unemployment is currently and how many job vacancies there exist. So it's just mind-boggling as to what's currently happening there. But I'm glad that we're able to attract quality talent to perform the necessary jobs and responsibilities that we count on people to do for our citizens of the town. So thank you for your efforts. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Looking around, not seeing any other hands. Am I missing anyone, Mr. Ledwith?
You are not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Well, if there are any ideas for future agenda items, folks can reach out to me, or we can discuss and talk about them with Rick. I think we should definitely talk about at some point what is happening with contract bidding and that sort of thing. I think that's an important thing for us to keep an eye on, particularly after some of the news that we've heard of numbers drastically increasing. I'd like to keep an eye on that for all purposes. But other than that, I do not see Mr. Davidoff. Do you have any items you want to add to the agenda for next meeting?
I agree, Mr. Chairman, that we ought to get a report, and maybe we can get some information from CCM as to whether other communities are experiencing what you identified as potential price gouging and taking advantage of the economic situation, because you can, not because the economics of the situation warrant it. And I think you're spot on, Mr. Chairman, with respect to that concern. You and I have had conversations offline with respect to a variety of projects that we may be undertaking and scenarios that may be presenting themselves with respect to capital projects. So I think we need to get better versed in that. And I think to expand on that, we need to know what remedies would be available to us, whether or not we would need to, for instance, contact possibly the Attorney General's office to see if this is something that is occurring statewide.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's lots of steps. I think first let's get our hands around what's going on with our contracts, and if there's a trend going on internally. I think that's something that we've got to get a handle on before we adopt a budget. I think Mr. Privatera would like to know that things aren't fluctuating significantly on things that we've already signed off on. That would make your job very difficult come budget time. But that is something, it is concerning to me, because with the shortages and issues with importing and exporting, it does seem as if some of that is getting better. However, for contractors to be taking advantage of municipalities because they have a fixed amount of money already bonded, and know that they can go back and get more money because there is municipalities do have more money on hand right now with the federal dollars that they have. I just want to make sure that this is not a trend that we have in town. And I think at some point, Rick, it might be something we want to explore with our delegation if we see it as a trend, as opposed to something that just happens here and there.
Yeah, we agree, Mr. Chairman.
I have one other thing, Mr. Chairman. We did receive an email late in the day today about the second round of ARPA grants to small businesses and nonprofit organizations. So I think by our next meeting, we should be able to get a full report as to what the total ask was and what the total distribution was provided to those entities in the town. I think that would be helpful to know. I think we appropriated or set aside about $2 million total. So it'd be interesting to see where we
Yes, we can do a full accounting for you at the next meeting. We did set aside $2 million and we had 134 applicants. We are in the process right now. We have 35 of those that are pending. So we've requested more information back from them to approve their particular request. But in the end, I think we're going to end up with about $700,000 or $800,000 that we are now going back out with this second round of applications to fill on a rolling basis. But we can provide you with the exact numbers and details, and hopefully before the next meeting, a lot of those pending projects will go into the approval column. We'll have a more firm number than that estimate of 600,000 or 700,000 is what I'm thinking.
I think that I think we need to figure out if there is a, I'd love to hear kind of a plan on how we're going to get word out on this time. I know that last time we may have, it may have just been timing issue. But I do think that, we should probably be screaming a little bit more from the rooftops about this issue. I would ask my fellow council members who have the ability to share things on social media to please share this link with their networks. I had a business reach out to me, and I think Mr. Davidoff did too, about missing this information. And we want to make sure that people are aware of this, because we have the money, and it's being appropriated for helping people get back on their feet. So any way we can help promote that, and I know that the chamber has been really good about promoting it, but if there's any other media platforms that we could get on to help promote this, I think that would be great.
Agreed.
All right.
Another further thing, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
I would like to see a parking revenue at our next meeting to see where we are now that we seem to see a lot more activity in the center. This past weekend was quite busy. It was very difficult to find on-street parking that one would have to pay for. And there was a lot of commentary throughout the community about how busy it was, because the weather was pretty much picture perfect Friday and Saturday. So that's a good problem to have. But I think it will. I think we'll see some, good numbers there, and I think that's a good story to tell. So we can look forward to seeing something more concrete in that sense.
Yeah, we will present that as well, Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Chairman, and agreed, Mr. Davidoff. We are seeing, numbers in our parking revenue account that we haven't seen since COVID. So we're starting to, we had a really strong August. I haven't seen the September numbers quite yet, Peter. I don't know if you've seen them either, but the August numbers were, and especially for summer, usually you see a little bit of a, people traveling and things like that, but it was an exceptional month. And I'm sure September and October are equally as strong. So starting to see really good news in that account.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Mr. Davidoff. If looking at Mary, anything else? Okay. All right. With that, without objection, I will move that we. Ms. Leavitt, you have nothing further?
That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Without objection, I move that we adjourn, and we'll see everyone tomorrow.
Have a good night, everyone.